to engage. Time on target. 5 mics. Out.
I did see that Dirk tweet, Greg, and that's great. So follow-up from our Oregon. What was the follow-up there on that?
The follow-up is that the Facebook ad campaign was briefly expanded to include not just now the swing or so-called influential moderate Democrats, but they added Wagner and Fahey. But Dirk writes that those ads were up for less than an hour. So I'm not quite sure, somebody in those offices was on Facebook and saw the ads and sent some screenshots and some texts were made and then some ads were taken down, it looks like.
Yeah, especially in her district, which would be the Eugene area, Speaker Fahey. So, But they're basically saying she's got the power to stop Trump, from
Which is it?
Giving tax breaks to hardworking Oregonians. Like, I just don't get that.
And funny enough, I'm on the Oregonian right now, and I'm getting an ad for Protect Life-Saving Virtual Care. Have you seen this before? I'm going to send it to you right now. I'm clicking on it to see where it goes. The influence campaigns, they're going right now. It's short session time, so people are pushing out their messages, and it's going to get interesting fast, I think. So I think one of the things that's important is obviously there's a lot of stuff that is potentially pretty big deal, pretty heavy topics. Even though it's short session, right? People aren't necessarily afraid to bring forward big topics. I think that what I'm sensing, at least from a couple of the chairs that we work with, is stuff that doesn't get fully baked. Like, pretty much by the time you've had your public hearing is dead. That's the sense I'm getting. I think there are some people that are going to try to push the envelope there, but we're working on two different bills. One's a committee bill, one's our bill, and we already have our amendments in the hopper. They just can't be published until the bills are published and all that. But like, that should be the end of them. Right. Yeah. And so if your bill is not done yet, you should start getting worried, and you should get it done. That's the message.
Things move pretty quick in short session. That is for sure. So I think, though, I got a feeling. I don't say I think I have a feeling that this is going to be a railroad. Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a railroad show. I don't think Republican stuff. I mean, they're going to give courtesy hearings to the people in there, but I got a feeling the Democrats want to railroad their agenda this year, because if you think about 2 years ago, we were kind of hijacked a little bit by the Measure 110 repeal. Like, there was kind of a bunch of stuff that they had to do, and they needed the Republican support to do it. And then now I feel like they're going to try to just railroad, which is not saying that's what I wouldn't do if I was in their shoes. But I get a sense of that there's just going to be leadership is going to try to reaffirm their strength on things. And maybe that's why the unions are putting these ads out, because maybe they're not getting the meetings that they want with leadership, and so they're kind of pissed that they're not getting what they feel they want the Dem leadership to do. So
I think I know what's driving this too. So I've in my feed, as in your feed, I get various stories that pop up from different state legislatures, just because that's, I think, an idea. Like, Twitter has an idea, that's what we're interested in. So I saw in Virginia, they're running out a ban on anything over magazines over 9, I think, and something like that. A pretty significant gun ban, because they just got full control again of Virginia with the governor's office and legislature, and so Dems had been frozen out of running some far left stuff. So it's not like they have big majorities, but they have majorities.
Yeah.
And so what happens in these states where Democrats have recently just got majorities is they run hard on their agenda. They push because they know that there's any chance they could get swept right out of power. So they just go for everything. I mean, they're trying to end mandatory minimums on child rapists and traffickers and stuff like that. I mean, they have all kinds of crazy bills introduced in Virginia, and the gun bills already are moving, right? So I think in Oregon, they've been in charge for a long time, and some of these things they've done, but over a period of time, and they just get jealous and they go, why can't we do stuff like that in Oregon? Why don't we get to run the
Yeah.
most radical of whatevers? And so then they go and try to do that, but there's like a pretty significant, I think it's there's some gun shyness on the leadership front that if they go too hard, that they would lose power, and then also there isn't
Yeah.
the appetite for it. The moderate Democrats are still, they have enough influence to be able to push some of this stuff or really heavily water it down, and so they just get jealous of what they're seeing on Twitter and what they're seeing in the news, and they really want to run a radical agenda, and they keep getting stymied, and it bothers them. And they don't think that the agendas they've run are radical enough, which I think is interesting. But I think it's just a loss of perspective.
Well, I think and there definitely is a split amongst the Democrats and the legislature. I think you really
Oh
get
yeah,
some of those radicalized ones that want to come in, and then you have some people that just want to make good policy, right? They're not there to score political points or climb a political ladder. And thank God there's some of those Democrats that still exist that are kind of just there to do the work, right? They're not there to be the next governor or whatever. They're just there to do the work, and we need to work with those people. And that's usually how Oregon's been able to kind of maintain some sort of level of sanity in a world that could completely go far left, insane. So I think, and also to be honest with you, Republicans in the legislature over the years, was not always, but we've had some pretty decent Republican leaderships that know how to navigate those waters and know how to basically, and we've had to use the walkout and stuff, right? I mean, 23 was going to be a hard left radical agenda that they were trying to push through, and they ran into the buzzsaw called Tim Knopp and Vicky Brees Iverson, and then it didn't work, right? And then the same thing happened. And I think even in 24, we were able to navigate the waters on the Measure 110 thing and not allow these radical agendas. So we've done a pretty good job too. And usually we just get beat up by our own party by not doing a good enough job. But I think there's like that twofold thing that works there, because like Washington Republicans and California Republicans, I feel like they just roll over and they just take whatever beating is given to them, and then they just move on. And because you never really hear anything kind of coming out of the other West Coast states from Republicans, standing up, pushing back, figuring out ways to navigate bad policy. I think they literally just show up and drink whiskey with the Democrats and say, "Hey, where are you guys kicking us today?"
I also think that point that you brought out is the argument against the refrain I hear from some Republicans where they go, well, if we stopped watering down their stuff, those bills would be bad enough that voters would finally see the light and they would finally vote Republican. And it's like, I don't think that's true. I don't think that has been proven anywhere. I think plenty of these states go hard left on all these different issues, and it hasn't necessarily changed the viewpoint. I think sometimes you have these situations where you have the right candidate or the whoever that breaks through, like a Chris Christie or a Larry Hogan or a Glenn Youngkin. But like on the whole, the argument is you should fight for the better policy, and if you can get a better bill, you should try to get a better bill. Because ultimately people still have to live under this, and you don't know how long it's going to be law, and you don't know what the next election is going to be like, right? And I think that you could water it down and then have a wave election and then win, and so then you're in a better spot to push that policy back the direction that it needs to go. So I don't think I think some people do want to throw up their hands, and I haven't seen evidence that that strategy is effective. And so I think continuing to fight where it's possible to fight is the right strategy, and trying to water these things down and trying to muddy the waters and trying to delay them. I think all of that does. It all has its place. Not all of it works all the time. Not gonna go there. Obviously, I think that there's times where it hasn't worked, and but on a lot of these issues, Democrats are uncomfortable with where they're at or the direction they're driving, and so we need to make sure that that uncomfortableness is allowed to play in these spaces, and so it can water these things down or delay them or make them better.
Well, I agree. Hey, Reagan, you know what really I think works for Republicans is running for governor. I think that's the plan.
I kind of thought that there would be a downturn from 2022 on how many people were running for governor. And I don't think there's a possibility there's going to be more candidates running for governor than last time. I think we should look at raising the filing fee. I think it's too low. Or, you got to collect 100 signatures, just anything to get it so that when you're aboard on a Saturday afternoon, you can't file for governor. I mean, goodness, it's getting insane. Now, I do think that the latest entrant is not somebody. Well, maybe he was bored. I don't know. I don't necessarily know what caused Mr. Dudley, Chris Dudley, to announce for governor. But we did say he was going to do it, and there were people who were skeptical, and so it's not much of a victory lap. But I'm taking it. We were right. Chris Dudley's running for governor, and so he announced it. He's got his website up. I think he might be a little rusty. I think he's shaking off a little bit of the rust here. It's been a few years, and so I think. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets back up to snuff pretty quick here. So he's dudleyfororegon.com is his website if people haven't seen it already. But he's got a quick video announcement. So what it seems like to me is that he has. He turned this around pretty fast, that he was trying to line up his get all of his ducks in a row, but he didn't, get a website done a long time ago or all that stuff, because you'd have to start reporting and all that. So he did wait until the last possible moment, and now he's out there. So the campaign's just getting built. But what do you think of the Dudley announcement, Brian?
I definitely knew it was coming. I think that everybody really, and I think he's kind of wants to get back into the political realm. And once you run for governor, it's kind of hard to run for anything lower than that, I feel. So, I think Christine figured that out when she came back to the legislature, and it was just like not as much fun as running for governor because it's just a bigger stage, right? So, and I think once you get on that big stage, I think it's kind of difficult for them to do anything less than that. So I think he looked at potentially some other things, but it's just not governor. So on that level, you're just like, okay, I'm just going to run for governor again. And he must have had enough feedback from enough donors and his circle of influence of people that he felt that he could find a lane that could get him out of the primary and challenge, Tina for the top job in the state. And I think that that's really ultimately what decided to it. I think the website's a little lacking. I think the logo, I don't like the blue and yellow thing. I don't think most people even know that's our state flag colors.
I have seen.
So I was a little bummed on the logo. So I just kind of like, meh. Frankly,
if part of his campaign is reminding people about how close we came in 2010, I would have just brought back the old logo. Just clean it up a little bit. There were actually two Dudley logos, by the way. People may not remember this, but there was the Dudley 2010 logo, and it was just the word Dudley next to the 2010, and one was red, one was blue. And then it was Dudley Join Oregon's Comeback, and that was the general election version, if I remember correctly, which is just an insane thing to have still in my memory banks. But either one of those, I think, both red, white, and blue, which is far and away the preferred colors from voters when they I talked about this, and if I can find it, I'll send it to you, Brian. They did some guys put together a study, and they asked candidates what they thought about campaign logos, they asked consultants what they thought about logos, and they asked voters. And candidates and consultants preferred modern logos with differing color schemes and all this, and voters were like red, white, and blue, classic with flags. Like voters, red, white, and blue is you probably shouldn't stray too far from it if you have a competitive election, and that kind of stuff, where that kind of stuff will matter more. In a safe seat, you go make your logo silly. I guess I don't care. I mean, I do care. I don't want it to look bad. But I do think there's more. And it does. I mean, it doesn't mean he doesn't have time to adjust that if he makes it through the primary. And I'm not saying that there isn't, to me, a lot of evidence that a good logo makes it so that you win the race. I don't think that has that much of an impact, but good branding can help your message spread faster and more effectively than bad branding does. And I think that's the part that matters here. And so I think
probably would have done a throwback to the Blazers on some level. I would have tried to incorporate some sort of red, black, and white theme into it, make people remember who he was. I would have probably done that in my announcement video, him, missing a free throw because he was a really bad free throw shooter or something. Like I would have just incorporated some sort of messaging, like to make people remember, and also to remember that he barely lost, that he had the lead until like 2 a.m. when Multnomah County showed up with 35,000 votes. Right. So I think like I would have really probably done a little bit of a throwback, and I would have just reminded people a little bit more in the announcement coming out. Maybe he's got a plan to do that. I hope so. But I probably would have done that. My logo would have been a little bit more Blazer-esque, and I would have just incorporated, hey, I know, not all of you remember me. Some of you weren't even born, but back in the day, I don't, just something, right? I mean, I would have just done something to jog people's memory that he came that close against a very popular governor in Kitzhaber. And I think that's really where the importance is. And so I say a little bit of a miss coming out of the box, a little bit of a stumble. I mean, Ed Deal really didn't even have a video announcement, so I guess there's that, right? I mean, at least he did something. Christine's was very theatrical out of the box, right? She had the whole thing, and she's pretty good at the theatrics and stuff, and building that sort of, she loves TV ads, so that makes sense.
I mean, her launch was definitely polished. Good. Yeah. Ed Deal's website finally has the governor logo on it. It was still back when he announced it was still state rep logo. He didn't do any kind of digital.
No, he just changed state rep to governor, I think.
Yeah, it's still the same website, but at least it says governor now.
He did he showed $100,000 donation yesterday, so that's pretty good. So Ed's raising some money. So there's
an individual, a single donation or total 100,000.
Yeah, single donation.
Wow, who was that? I did not see that.
It was from Glenn Stonebrink out of Rickreall.
Okay. All right.
$100,000. So Mr. that Glenn makes it a little bit of different. If he's able to raise money on top of putting together his Get Out the Vote campaign, I think that's gonna upset the apple cart on a few people.
Well, and that's been one of the things. I've never argued that Ed can't win the primary. In fact, I was having this discussion with some PCPs, and so I walked through this, and you might see there were some folks that we're talking to that were writing up. We have Lynn County Republicans love to write some blog posts and stuff, and they write in different spots. So you may see some of that pop up. But if I could pull this up real quick, this primary, like almost all primaries, has like 3 lanes, basically. So here's what I wrote. I'd say Deal probably closely most represents the base, Drazen the establishment, and Dudley the business outsiders. Okay? These are like the 3 groups that kind of exist generally in our sphere. There's other smaller groups, there's Second Amendment folks, and sometimes they have their representation, but broadly it's the base, it's the establishment, like the electeds, and then the business outsiders. Okay? Each group thinks the other 2 are stupid and annoying. The base thinks both the business outsiders and the establishment only care about themselves and are not conservative enough. Okay, the establishment thinks neither the base nor the business outsiders actually understand politics. Okay. And the business outsiders think the base is out of touch and the establishment is too scared of the base to do hard things. Right. So that's like roughly what I think. And you could break this, that you go back into one of the previous primaries and you could say maybe Pulliam was representative of the base and Dre's in the establishment. And then, what's his name? That the business guy that came in late, whose name I can't remember right now. Yes. Bob Tiernan represented the business outsiders. Okay. And so the business outsiders show up and they go, these are easy problems to solve. All you just do is you just do this and you do this and boom, they got a white paper, they got solutions, they got bills, whatever. And then those things meet political reality and they go, what is everybody upset about? We don't understand this. Right. And then you have the establishment that understands, yeah, there's these solutions out there, but then there's like political reality of like trying to get this stuff passed. Right. And there's this base that cares about all this stuff. And a lot of it is not economic policy. And that's the thing that confuses the business outsiders is they're like, everybody's all fired up, but they're not fired up about tax rates and they're not fired up about the economy and they're not fired up about deductibility and any of these business issues. They're fired up on abortion and guns and immigration and all this stuff. And so those guys don't know how to talk to each other. And it's like the establishment's job to like play the middleman. And so as the establishment is playing the middleman, sometimes the business outsiders lose and sometimes the base loses. And so both groups get mad at the establishment. And I don't think that makes the establishment better than others. Sometimes the establishment is incredibly cowardly and is afraid of the base. And sometimes they're afraid of one donor and they make their vote based on those things. And it's right. And so if you can align all these three, you become very powerful, but it's very challenging to get all of these things to fit together. And so that's why in these primaries, you see, why are all these candidates running against each other? Different ideologies in how to get stuff accomplished in politics and different priorities. And those priorities materialize as candidates. And I think most people would say Deal very much more in tune with the base than the other two. Drazen much more establishment, and Dudley very much business outsider, right? And I think those are like the three categories. And now it's all about who do voters want to put forward in that argument. It's because the base isn't the only one that votes. The base is the hard right involved folks. There's a bunch of registered R's that only check in during the election time that aren't as active that also vote. Right. And then you also have, you also have your liberals and you also have these other smaller groups, and who's going to pick up some of those folks. Right. And so I think broadly, that's the primary we have in front of us. And so we got to get to see who's going to do well under those.
Where do you think like Medina falls out in that mix? I mean, he's got a pretty big social following. I know I agree with everything you said in regards to like these lanes, and out of these lanes kind of come candidates. I think that's a good way of kind of putting it, right? So you kind of have these areas, and then, but I just wonder, like, you get somebody like a Medina, who granted, he doesn't have any experience doing anything except for maybe Jan 6 riots or something, but in fighting with reporters. But and I don't know David at all. I could really care less, but I think that he does have a following. He does speak some hard truths. I think he does a pretty good job on social in regards to things. Does he fall like in
I would say
space maybe? Okay.
I would say he's more of a base, but he's just like a less experienced, newer base candidate, whereas Deal has a little bit more experience and then a lot of notoriety from the no tax. I'd say Bethel probably fits pretty easily in establishment, although she is trying to position herself as business outsider, but like she's a current elected, so I would categorize her more as establishment, just because, and I think that's also more how she's running, and she may split that lane a little bit because she isn't trying to be the same as Drazen, and she is trying to do something different. I don't know that we'll see if it works, right? But I would say I lean more towards establishment. I would say there's some evidence it's not working. I don't know if a more crowded primary helps her or hurts her yet. It could help. As this primary gets more crowded, it starts to get more, and here's my dog trying to get on my lap and miss me. But more regional.
You keep dividing the vote. I think the more my wisdom would tell me, like based on money and all the things, the more divided the vote gets, the more it probably helps Drazen right now. Because she's going to have kind of a base of support built in from last time, and she's, got decent money in the bank. So I think it's still going to be pretty difficult, like the way it stands now. But if Ed keeps dropping $100,000 checks, and if Dudley kind of fumbles around and doesn't drop some big numbers soon, and get on TV and have a message that resonates, because you can't just resonate your message with Business Outsiders because there's not that many of them.
Yeah.
You have to resonate with the base a little bit, right?
I also think the fun thing to see will be, I don't know who's on Ed's team. I reached out to some of his previous consultants. It doesn't sound like he's using those folks. So I don't know who his political team is. We know Drazen's political team, right? We know roughly the consultants that she's going to use, and they do hire some folks, but mostly it's kind of, it's local. It's people who are in Oregon now that we know. And then Dudley's team is out of state, former Chris Christie consultants. So Ed's team will be interesting to see, like, kind of who he chooses to go with and what the strategy is. And then also, I think, just like, is he going to make any arguments?
His shirt's not Dwayne Younger? I thought Representative Younger seems to be the one champion him online.
Could be. He may be in charge of socials or something.
Oh, okay.
Again, he may have some time on his hands in February if he doesn't, have any bills to work or anything like that. But we'll see.
Is it true that he forgot that he missed the filing day?
Many people are saying, Brian. Many people are saying. I don't think he's the only one, too, which is unfortunate.
So great.
So I think that's a lesson you probably.
All the time. Yeah.
I think that's a lesson you probably learn one time, and then you either don't have a job or you don't make that mistake again. Hopefully. So.
Well, he can't. I think his wife works for him, so they can't really fire his wife.
So I'd forgotten about that as well. So Brian, the other thing I wanted to talk about, still related to candidates, the Oregonian. So I have to call this out because you're very funny on Twitter, and you go out and reply.
Thanks,
and sometimes I'll see one of these pop up, and I'm just going to read this verbatim. So Oregonian tweets, in Oregon's most flippable U.S. House district, talking about the 5th district against Bynum, why have Republicans struggled to recruit a strong candidate? And the answer here is, of course, it's a Republican midterm election with a Republican in the White House. That's why. But you replied, you said, decent article, except where Carrie McQuiston said she helps Republicans win. No evidence of that, like, ever. I was dying laughing because that's so funny, Brian. And also, I think very true. I think now if you follow, I think they started a group called Oregon Conservative Caucus. And they're very active on social media, and they're talking about the voters that they're registering in the North Coast. I don't have any way to disprove that they're getting that accomplished. I think they are benefiting from trends that had already been happening maybe before they got started. And so it's a lot easier to paddle when the water is pushing you forward versus paddling against the stream. So, but I don't think also there's anything necessarily yet that they can point to that's like, we did this, we got this done, we won this race that was a loss, that kind of stuff, which is why I liked that you kind of called that out.
Because they want to be like the anti-GOP, right? They want to be the anti-Republican party, and so instead of just trying to work together, they just want to go against them. And it's great to have more groups doing different things to help us win, but there is zero evidence that they've ever done anything to help us win. So I just don't know where that's. And sometimes these reporters, I don't know how Carrie McQuiston gets in with them. Maybe they call them because they want somebody from a different, voice or something like that. But it's just was kind of laughable. And I remember talking to another reporter about that article, and I said I said it has nothing to do with the midterm. I mean, heck, if you were smart, maybe, apparently, if you're Lori Chavez Dreamer and you lose to Bynum, you get a cabinet position. I mean, geez, I'd probably line up to go do that. Seems like a pretty big upswing. I don't think it's that. I don't think people are afraid of Trump and stuff like that. Bynum is a nasty person. And she will call any person running against her a racist, a bigot, just a Trump. I mean, look how she treated Lori on that race. I mean, she is nasty. And people just, who wants to sign up for that? To hear them just spew shit about you for 7 months and just have to even debate. Now, if I were to run against, Bynum, I would literally call her a racist, and I think she is, and I would come out and just hammer her, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this, but I don't think she's a good person on any level. I don't think she's a good person, and I think that I hopefully Patty Adair mounts up a good campaign. We'll see how much money she raised and stuff. It's coming out pretty soon, but I think Patty's a good candidate. I mean, she won county commissioner in a swing district. I mean, I think that's not really fair to call her a bad candidate. I mean, Jonathan Lockwood's a bad candidate, but I mean, Patty Adair's not a bad candidate. I mean, there could be better, but Patty's not bad. I think that's kind of shortchanging us.
I think basically what they're saying is, why isn't a state legislator running, right? Like, because you have that level, that tier of a candidate, and that's usually
Sure.
considered our top tier, is somebody who's won election in as large a district as possible, right? Dreamer came very, very close and was a proven fundraiser and fit the district and all those kinds of things. And I think part of that is just because, one, so I do still think the midterm plays into it. I think if this was a 2022 style environment where we thought it was going to be a wave year, you would have a legislator taking a crack at this. I think
so.
that's number one. I do think Bynum and how she campaigns and all that stuff is hard nosed and also makes you take a look at it. She's not going to roll over on you 100%. But I also don't necessarily look at her and go, think she's an amazing candidate, not a great communicator, right? She is going to have unlimited resources, though. You got to know that. I also think that, like, the Clackamas area, you don't have a ton of legislators that are Republicans that are left. I mean, you basically got, folks like, I don't even know. I have trouble with these districts, and I'm looking at the map on the legislative website. Right. Like, and I wouldn't necessarily consider him a strong candidate. He is a candidate. But you have a lot of this area where it's like it's rural Marion, so you got a handful of Republican legislators, but then you've got Clackamas, which is mostly Dem right now. You've got Bend area, which is almost all Dem right now. Like there just aren't a ton of Republicans left. You've got Lynn County and you've got Marion County and parts of that. So that's where you're going to draw from, the Canyon area, right? So I think Ed Deal would have been a potential candidate. I think somebody like that. I know Gerard does not have any interest in Congress. Can't imagine. But you could certainly have somebody like that in a different year. But I think also people don't want to run for Congress because Congress kind of sucks, especially when you live on the West Coast and travel is the worst. You just
totally took my point away. I mean, Vicky's been asked numerous times to run, for these congressional seats, and we've been to DC and done that, but to get on a plane and, knowing Greg Walden did it for, 22 years, and he would say 35 trips back and forth every year on that plane is just horrible. And it's not a good time, of a flight. And even just going there to do some meetings or do some conferences, like it's a bear, man. It is not a lot of fun. It's being a congressman woman from even west of the Mississippi is a tough chore. So, and I think that's the real reality. But West Coast is even a bigger chore because that Portland to DC flight, and there's one. So really, if you're leaving out of Redmond or anywhere else, like you're spending 2 days flying back and forth, and it beats you up. And no thanks, for a Congress that basically does nothing.
Yeah, you're spending Saturday and Sunday on a plane. That's just, and like, who wants to do that? Or you're staying in DC the whole time. And I mean, I think that you can enjoy that for a little while, but eventually you get homesick, right? So I don't know. All right, Brian, anything else we need to cover? Looking at potentially towards the end of this week doing a draft. So I have some thoughts. We could either draft, pick your top three team you want fundraising for you, or we could go and we could draft our if we could pick leadership, if we could pick who was the Senate president, the speaker, the coach. That's kind of,
I like that. That's good.
We'll talk about it, but we'll have a fun game at some point the end of this week to lighten it up, because we've been news heavy. There's been a lot of news. So we gotta have some fun as well. And then I think short session, looking at some interviews. So look forward to that as well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do a lot during there. And then I think in all the bills that are coming out, we'll see who was kind of hiding their bills until they drop on Olis. So that'll be kind of fun to see kind of what people start freaking out about. So we'll kind of go from there. But yeah, it should be. I think the governor's race. I mean, just my final thought on it is that I think maybe. I mean, we'll get a few more, people that want to get 1% of the vote that might get into the race. But I think the field is set. I feel like we got the heavy hitters have all kind of now finally endorsed or finally, put their name in the ring. And so the field is set. I don't anticipate anybody else. I do want to say that I know Maxine Dexter must listen to the pod because she did file for her congressional seat. So maybe my theory's all out of blown out of whack.
We're bullying people into running. Look at that. Last thing, Brian, real quick. I think I talked to you about this right before we started recording. The forecast based on 2025 population estimates, now that we're in 2026, is that in reapportionment. So this is not redistricting, but it's related to redistricting. Reapportionment is how many congressional seats do you get of the 435. And right now, here's what we're looking at. So California loses 4 seats. That's rough.
Dang.
Then Oregon loses 1, Minnesota loses 1, Wisconsin loses 1, Illinois loses 1, Pennsylvania, New York lose 1. So that is the losses. And then on the positives, Idaho, Utah, Arizona all get 1 seat, which just all makes sense because if you're moving from the West Coast, unless you're going to North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, you're going to Idaho, Utah, Arizona. So those all pick up 1 seat. Georgia, North Carolina also pick up a seat. Florida gets 2, and Texas literally just picks up the 4 California seats for itself. So 4 seats go to Texas. So right now,
that's great.
Right. So, but what we've got is Oregon has 5 years left, maybe 4 years left to turn the population situation around and avoid losing a seat. Maybe we can get California to lose a 5th one. So anyway, if you want to not lose a congressional seat, Oregon, we probably need to fix the economy.
Reagan, is that why Democrats want illegal aliens running all over the country?
Well, I think part of it too is that if this next census occurs, so Trump will not be president, but I would guess that his Census Bureau will be the one doing all the prep work. And I think the plan is to do it with not counting. Because so there was a disagreement about whether or not they were counting. Yeah. And I don't remember how that broke down, but they either did or did not. I think the Biden administration did count non-citizens. Yes. And Trump obviously does not want to count non-citizens. And so I don't know if they'll have to litigate that more in the courts or where we're at with that. But ultimately, if they don't count non-citizens, that would be pretty significant. And that may be what's contributing to the big loss down in California of seats.
Could be. More to come. All right, buddy. Have a good day.
Hey, thanks, Brian. You too.